the lower self was to surrender to the higher self in order to enter the sacred space. This meant that the ego of the everyday world had to step aside, while the higher self connected with cosmic energy.
Vulture can fly, snake can't fly, but both have the same glands. System of life is based on glands.
The glands were the most important features of the human being.
One of the most misunderstood functions of the human body today is our glandular or endocrine system. Glands secrete hormones that trigger reproduction. Fertility and procreation had high value in Egyptian ideology.
The ancients were very much in tune with how the energy systems in the body, or the chakras, as the East Indians would talk about them, were connected to the glands.
Ancient teachings speak of 7 energy centers in the body called chakras. Parallels occur between the concepts of chakras, or energy centers in the body, and our glands. It appears they are 2 ways of describing the same thing, through spirituality and through science. Ancient Egyptians had a holistic understanding of the significance of the glands and their central role in reproduction and in consciousness. If we can decode the symbols, we see that the sacredness of procreation is readily visible in ancient Egyptian art.
When you see a boy or a man, you see a kind of a bottle on his head. That is not a bottle or not a white crown symbolizing Upper Egypt, as my colleagues and the scholars say. No, this is a gland in the human body known as the thymus, located behind the lungs.
The thymus is most active when a baby is in utero. It continues to be active until puberty. Then it begins to shrink and is atrophied when we stop being fertile. It was a critical activator of consciousness.
The red crown is another. It's the womb, the placenta. The thymus and the womb are connected for the cycle of life. When you see the double crown, the red crown is the womb and the placenta. The white crown is the thymus, who has its influence on the womb. That's the symbol of one of the glands.
In the early 1900s, alchemist Schwoller de Lubitz presented a work called The Temple of Man. It demonstrated that the architects of the Luxor temple used sacred geometry, which reflected the exact proportions of the human body. As in all Egyptian temples, the most sacred space was located at the back of the temple, the Holy of Holies, which corresponded to the pineal gland. When activated, the pineal gland is said to stimulate the evolution of higher states of consciousness. If the temples were metaphors of the human body, the pineal gland corresponded with the Holy of Holies.
In the exact center of your brain resides a tiny organ called the pineal gland, about the size and shape of a kernel of corn. According to medical science, the pineal gland is the first gland in your body to be formed, and it is clearly distinguishable a mere 3 weeks after conception. In Western culture, there was a time when doctors were taught that the pineal gland had no useful purpose, a mere vestige of our evolutionary past. However, it was discovered, or more properly, acknowledged, that the pineal gland produced a hormone called melanin. Melanin is a pigment associated with blackness. In the dictionary, the meaning for the word black has always been looked upon as purely negative. However, melanin plays multiple life-giving roles in the body. Not only does this amazing hormone counteract stress, minimize symptoms of jet lag and regulate biological rhythms, it may even help protect against cancer, reduce the risk of heart disease, and play a role in how long we live. Blackness may be a blessing, and not a curse. The study of melanin may be a key for unlocking the doors of mass enslavement to ignorance. Each step in the production of melanin requires certain nutritional components. Each biochemical reaction in the chain is controlled by a specific enzyme. When all proper elements are available, a considerable amount of melanin is produced. If elements are lacking, less is produced. The more melanin one has, the more frequencies of light rays and other frequencies can be safely absorbed by them. Chemical reactions occur in the melanin molecule which allow it greater energy efficiency, and thus little if any energy is reflected. Those with less melanin reflect more energy away. More than one type of melanin is found in humans, and the more powerful darker types have less sulfur, 0 to 1%, while the lighter types have more sulfur, 9 to 12%. The sulfur content induces mutations which contribute to cancer formation more readily from UV light exposures. An oscillator is a circuit which produces or responds to electromagnetic waves, usually within a certain range of frequencies. They respond most strongly to vibrations at their own resonant frequency. Basically, everything in nature is an oscillator and responds to an outer exciter or spark or generator, which many people call God. Many oscillators respond to light by absorbing and emitting specific frequencies. These oscillators can be human cells, plant cells, or other various creations within the vast universe. And all can exhibit quantum states still little understood by top minds of science today. Melanin exhibits varying types of electrical charges and binding properties responsible for its great electromagnetic activities. Melanin responds to light, sound, and electricity, and uses any or all of these as nutrients. It has been shown to convert light energy into sound, and then back into light again. It is involved in all mental and physical activities of people, and has been shown to possess semiconductive properties even outside of the body. Thus, melanin can either conduct energy or insulate from it in certain directions, as needed by the body for optimal functioning. It has great use in absorbing energy rays of vibration for use within the nervous system. Melanin can be fed by charges from the outer world and use them internally for the body's sustenance. Thus, it is important to get sunlight rays each day, if possible, to recharge the internal systems. Absorption of energy is necessary for electrons to move across the semiconductor melanin molecules. Hence, the dark color of melanin is needed to absorb more energy. With less absorption comes less conductive activity as well. Increased conductivity brings increased sensitivities to electromagnetic worlds of etheric beings. Amazingly, chlorophyll, the green liquid within plants, is a first cousin of melanin. It is good to drink daily or eat in one's food. When a force is applied repeatedly at the same frequency of any system, large amplitude of oscillations occur. This is the phenomenon of resonance. The Earth itself has its own resonant frequency. It has been increasing since the late 1980s and will soon reach a key vibration point of 13. As this occurs, our pineal glands, as long as remaining decalcified, will synchronize with the Earth vibrations. The pineal gland magnetically attracts energy up the spine and can bring one, possibly, to the higher plane of existence. Perhaps our next step of evolution as a species? Purify the heart and find your peace within, as the journey day by day comes closer to an end. One way or another it is inevitable for you. Why not be prepared?
And once we separate, not so much as separate spirituality from religions, and understand that out of our spirituality came the world's religions, the God concept of those religions, of Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, came out of what I refer to as pre-God religions. I don't use that anymore because people don't understand what I mean about pre-God religions. They are so accustomed to the word God, they cannot understand that there was a time when man thought of a force in the universe presiding over the universe. And while he meant God, he did not use the word God. And man had more spirituality before he consistently used the word God. He used the God force and the God concept without using the word. He meant the same thing. And ultimately, Western man interpreted that as meaning the same thing.
Spirituality is a way of accepting the fact that there is a spiritual force in the universe larger than all of mankind.
Let's go back during the time of antiquity. The word antiquity means ancient time.
Yes.
There was no religion, no place on planet Earth. You have to realize that. Going back into Africa, you will find the Africans living in the continent of Africa not having a religion, but they had a spiritual way of life that included the ancient Egyptians also. They paid homage to their ancestors. They paid homage to nature. They knew the laws, the cosmic laws of the universe, and they lived their lives according to these various laws of the universe.
Man must be in harmony with nature. Man must not be in a violent struggle against the elements. And that man and God and nature are in partnership one to the others. And all of the elements work with man, and all life is linked together in cause and effect. In a harmonious chain, there was no death, but a continuation of life. And the European concept of life is a violation of harmony. When you look at Russia and the United States, look at their struggle to control the world, it makes no sense. it is out of harmony. Not only with nature, it is out of harmony with common sense. It is a violation of nature to poison the air, to endanger babies. Nature gave you fresh air to breathe. You throw everything out of harmony when you put poison in the air. God created the spring, God created wind to purify the air. He didn't do this for man to put chemicals and spoil the air so that the child couldn't breathe. The African thought about all of this as part of the totality of life. So his religion stemmed out of bringing life in line with the harmony of God's creation. And if we are to create a new way and a new harmony and a new decency for all people, we must bring things in harmony with nature. Because this is the basis of what this ancient African did. This is why he could have 3,000 years without a war.
Now when we see something like this again, where our ancestors were into something deep. But again, look very closely. Now that we have broken that down, you see that this person has become what is called a netter, or a spiritual one, or has become God-like, because he rose up his pineal gland. As you see the serpent here, now his third eye is open. His spiritual eye is open. Okay? So again, we looked at nature. We used symbols. Why did we use symbols? Because symbols operated on the collective consciousness of the mind. Okay? We still have, as Brother Dr. Richard King pointed out, which he expounds on this very well from his research, that even though they have destroyed our libraries, they have not destroyed our genetic libraries that's in us. It's just lying there dormant. All we have to do is open it up.
It is here that our ancestors had us study from the 42 books of Tahuti, representing science, law, and intelligence, who was represented as the ibis bird that you saw. We saw those little white birds that we saw come over here. So our ancestors looked at nature. We didn't worship the bird, but it was an attribute of science, attribute of intelligence. Tahuti writing down the deeds of our life on earth as we lived here. This is where the Western philosophical thought, Greeks took their concept of Hermes Trismegistus from Tahuti, now called thought too.
Again, our ancestors looked at nature to symbolize various attributes of nature. We did not worship insects. We did not worship animals. Okay? They represented various attributes of nature. For instance, the little scarab beetle was symbolized as the great mind. Why? Because the top of the little scarab beetle was identical to the top of the cranial cavity of the brain. So the little scarab was looked at as the great mind of Ptah. That was Ptah's symbol, the scarab that created the universe. Also how the scarab, okay, would roll up his dung, okay, and make the sun. That was a symbol of being self-created, because the eggs would have to feed from the dung, and that was a symbolic as being self-created. Now, when we see something like this, we say, I sure don't understand what our ancestors was doing back in those days. They put this big bug on this body. What in the world is this? What you see here, remember I said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and the Spirit of God moved across the deep. Okay? So we see nothing but darkness. The scarab symbolized Ptah, black. The red body symbolized the sun that was created. Our ancestors saw ourselves in relationship with that of nature. We were totally connected with nature. We did not worship animals and insects. There were various attributes, because we looked at nature for our communication. Okay? That's why we were not destructive towards nature. So what we see is mind over body. And that's how we see the little scarab creating the sun, because it's red, like you see the body here is being red. The body was looked at as the great sun. That's why you call your sun the sun today. Symbolized as that sun. Okay? So here we see the little scarab rolling up the dung, was symbolic as how Ptah rolled up the sun in the universe and created the light. This was all symbolic and all various attributes.
We need to look back and study our origins and where we came from. Try now to imagine Earth in prehistoric times. A place filled with a multitude of dangers, giant animals and reptiles, huge predators, earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes and meteors, and the subsequent fear and hostility such an unfriendly environment would breed. If you could be a time traveler and be spirited back to these ancient times, complete with all the sophisticated modern knowledge you now have, admit it, you'd be scared to death. I know I would be. Now try to imagine what it must have been like for these ancient people, totally devoid of all the knowledge we now take for granted about the awesome forces of nature. A volcano erupts, destroying everything in its path. The sky reverberates with thunder as a violent electrical storm hurls thunderbolts to earth, which start fires. Tornadoes sweep people, animals, and trees away into the sky. The earth opens up and an earthquake swallows a village in the twinkling of an eye. Gazing up into those fearsome skies filled with infinite numbers of stars, not to mention shooting stars, without having the remotest idea of what they were, lacking any form of scientific explanation. Is it any wonder that these ancient peoples created a myriad of all-powerful nature gods and the countless myths that surrounded them? The gods which have been worshipped and sacrificed to for thousands of years since.
Now you can see all three pyramids. Now on the further back is the pyramid of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure. Keep in mind, brothers and sisters, that our ancestors had astronomical science, astrology, where they studied the stars and so forth. One of the things that's been brought to astronomers' attention is that they noticed that the pyramid of Khufu and Khafra, if you notice right here, are in a perfect alignment. Okay? It's a perfect alignment. But the question is that why would such a perfect alignment and perfect structure where they built the small pyramid of Menkaure off course? Can you see it off course? Yeah. But what they found, though, is that our ancestors were building the pyramids in alignment with the stars, that they were in rhythm with the astrology and the astronomical science of the universe, science of astrology or the study of the stars. And what they found is that the star system Orion was the star system of Osiris. Remember, the king wants to become one with Osiris. So by aligning the pyramid of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure with Orion, and that's why they built the pyramid of Menkaure slightly over and not in alignment, because the pyramids were built off the alignment of the star system Orion. The star system Ceres was Isis. So our ancestors, in essence, were building heaven on earth. They were taking the science of the stars and building the pyramids exactly as they saw the heavenly body, or the cosmological universe. Figure out why Menkaure's pyramid was not in a perfect alignment, but it fits with the alignment of the star system Orion. As well as the other pyramid layout, it fits into the constellation that our ancestors saw of Osiris. And that is the constellation of the man that they have today as a figure of a man. So you can take and put the star system Orion right over the pyramid of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure and see why they had the alignment of Menkaure slightly over, because it fit with the star system Orion, because the purpose was for the soul to ascend into heaven, for the spirit to ascend into heaven, to become one with Osiris. And the star system Orion was connected with Osiris. Keep in mind that the star system Orion was aligned perfectly with the chambers of the pyramids that we're going to deal with later on in our lecture series when we get into it. So this is serious knowledge to show you how profound our ancestors saw that they were building and with the constellation of the universe. Tomorrow when you go into Saqqara, you're also going to see the pyramid of Unas, showing the first concept of ascension into heaven. Long before there was Christianity, long before there were little white angels with wings under, that we get a concept that we're going to go to heaven, Unas already had the concept of ascension into heaven, or a spirit going into heaven, known as astrotheology. So this is what our ancestors saw, the soul becoming one with the great god Osiris in the constellation of Orion, which was the symbol for Osiris. And the star system Ceres was for Isis. Powerful astronomical knowledge that our ancestors had, showing how in tune our ancestors were with the heavenly bodies. In essence, building heaven on earth.
Spirituality is a way of accepting the fact that there is a spiritual force in the universe larger than all of mankind, But someone had to come along and invent a word called God. And someone had to say of another God. And say, mine is better than yours. And someone had to create faith. Someone said, I have the true faith. Religion is the organization of spirituality into something that became the handmaiden of conquerors. Nearly all religions were brought to people and imposed on people by conquerors and used as the framework to control their minds. My main point here is that if you are the child of God and God is a part of you, then in your imagination, God's supposed to look like you. And when you accept a picture of the deity assigned to you by another people, you become the spiritual prisoners of that other people.
The representation of God should always be the great. It should always be the black, because it can produce all things.
So what I'm really asking is, why is it that we're just really looking in one direction when we're talking about the origins of Greek civilization?
When Alexander entered Egypt, he wrote home to his mother and said that he at last reached the land where the Greek gods began, Apollo and Zeus. And he wanted to consult one of the great African teachers of oracles. And the oracle asked, how old is this man? He said, 32. They said, in 20 years, maybe he'll be wise enough to ask me a question that I care to answer.